Hey guys, it's John Pike and welcome to the Team Top Gold training for Thursday the 28th of August. It's absolutely fantastic to have you guys on the call tonight. Greg, welcome to the call and thanks for your week-by-week assistance. Great to have you, Greg. Great. And Albie, what a surprise. We've got a very, very special guest, Albie Costa. Now, Albie and I have been friends for at least 2 to 3 years, and Albie has just grown our team like nothing else at the moment. Very exciting times. Albie, welcome to the call. Great to have you.
Thank you so much, John. It's a pleasure to be here. It was kind of last minute, but I am just I'm thrilled to be here and I'm thrilled to be involved with what you're doing, John.
Thank you very much. It's great to have you and your support. You know, this is really creating content on the fly. So, you know, many times in our enterprise, in our business, we have to be in the moment, and oftentimes, even when we're talking to prospects, people think they have to be scripted, but you've got to really be listening, be in the moment, and the more unscripted something is, the more it's going to be coming from.
Yeah, sorry, I thought it might be me. We only got our internet back up a few hours ago after being absolutely thumped by a thunderstorm last night. I'm not too sure what happened down in Adelaide. I know he's in Adelaide. You're up on the Sunshine Coast, and I'm down here in Coffs Harbour. So, mate, you and I might have to take over, Greg. Oh, I don't think I posted that anywhere. I think that was in an email I sent out to my team. But you happen to be on my list, as it turns out. Yeah, look, the last 12 months have been insane. We came from, our philosophy was to run 5 or 6 different businesses, multiple streams of income, and we were heavily engaged into that, digital income streams. And then we went through an evolution like every other person goes through when they get online. We trusted people, we didn't trust people, we trusted people, and we went through this, bouncing back and forth, and we got involved in all these businesses. We made some amazing money. Unfortunately, we just weren't involved in things that were going to last the test of time. We weren't involved in businesses that had physical products that really, really improved people's lives financially. We're involved in things that had digital products, and when those businesses collapsed, those businesses, the money would just disappear into cyberspace. We would quite literally sit there as these businesses folded up, and you could watch the pixels disappear on the screen. Lawrence and myself, and you're part of our team too, and so is John. We all, at some point, we collectively made a decision to get involved in something that, number one, had a real product, number two, improve people's lives, and number three, where we could, because we really always had a desire to help people through that minefield that we call the online marketing industry. And, it really disturbed us that we would get involved in something with a clear conscience, and then it would fold up, and we'd later on realise that it really wasn't everything it seemed to be. So that's how we got involved in the Carabars business, and we've never looked back. And $600,000 US. It seems like a lot of money, but I'm actually paying off a whole lot of bills and a whole lot of sins that I created before we got into this business. So, it's a great income, but we're going to get to a point, some point, where we keep it all. But we love it, and yes, it does provide us with an amazing cash flow, and it's sensational having a team of people like yourself and John, Lawrence, who's my business partner, and Wendy, and we've got guys like Andy, who's in your business. It's just such a wonderful journey that we're on.
Okay, we're back, and with Albie and John, but I think John's got a mic problem. So Albie, just continuing on with a couple of things that actually occurred today. We've now got the new sales funnel launched, which is absolutely phenomenal. And one of our affiliates, Andy, of course Andy from Darwin.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Rang me very excited today, saying he's just been notified by email that someone has gone through his sales funnel filled out the application, the questionnaire, paid their $19, and he's been emailed all the answers to the questionnaire. And he was saying his first words, but the woman is in London, so I believe, or in the UK somewhere, and he should have contacted her, I think, late this afternoon. But what he said to me was quite remarkable. And he said, the woman thinks like me. She's just like me. Her journey's the same. I had a good chuckle with him, because what he read is the results of his email with the results of the questionnaire. That yes, she was working part time and she's knocking her head against a brick wall regarding the internet. Yes, she wants to earn money from home for the internet. She can't find the right niche that actually makes money for her. And yes, she's looked at The Secret and she's doing personal development. And Andy's saying she's just like me. And I thought, isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful?
Look, it's fascinating, isn't it? The whole funnel was set up to filter. I mean, think of the word funnel. There's the wide end of the funnel, sort of coming down to the narrow end, and obviously there's a whole bunch of filters that we've put in place to try and filter out sort of the tire kickers from the serious guys. And look, if you've joined this business, you have a certain mindset. And I know Andy very well. I've spoken to him many times, and he's an absolute cracking guy. I love Andy, and he has a fantastic mindset. He has the future in his sights. And look, once you come through this funnel and come through all the filters, you're going to come to a point where you're thinking just the same as the rest of us, and that is, we want a better future. We're at a certain point in our life where we understand that everything we've done up until now, maybe it's not going to get us to where we want to get to, so we're looking for something different. And, so it's no surprise that he's got somebody there that thinks just like him, because they've had to go through like 110 minutes of video and a whole bunch of questions, pay money to actually get to a point that we're actually applying to get into the BTG system. So if they've got to that point, it means that they're thinking, and that's the whole purpose of the funnel, is just like Greg, John, Andy, and myself. We've all got to this point because of a certain process that we've gone through. So, it's just awesome to see it working that well. I mean, I'm so chuffed for Andy. Andy's just a really special guy. He's had more challenges than most humans should have to endure in places on the planet that most people won't go to. And, so I'm just thrilled to see this working for him.
Look, it is, Albie, and considering that he's only just started to actually drive traffic to his funnel, so it's only been a matter of a couple of days that the new traffic has been going into the funnel, and out pops at the other end is this woman all hot to trot, and as we say, a hot prospect. And it's just marvellous to actually see it's almost like a mechanical machine, but it's done in cyberspace, this funnel, and you put suspects in at one end, as it were, and what comes out at the other end are hot prospects. It's wonderful. So it looks like we may have lost you, Albie. Oh no, you're back again.
I like that. I haven't heard that before, but that's fantastic. We turn suspects into prospects. Kind of sounds like a spy game, doesn't it?
It does, as a matter of fact. It does. and all this happens with behind the scenes. You don't have to do anything. I mean, all you got to do is drive the traffic to the front end of it.
And can you guys hear me?
John?
Oh yes, John, we've got you back. Yeah. Welcome back.
Do you know what's really, really powerful about this? And just hearing you guys talk about it, not only are you getting somebody qualified for the business, but this just really sounds like law of attraction stuff, and it's not airy-fairy. There's a lot of work that's gone into this. But the thing is, when you were just mentioning there, Greg, about the very fact that this person's been filtered and filtered and filtered, you haven't had to call them, send them extra information, follow up with them, set the next appointment. I agree with all that kind of stuff, and that stuff actually does work. But here, for people who are time poor, right, you get hot prospects, and the sifting and the sorting has actually been done for you. So this actually helps you leverage your time incredibly. And it also, you know, you can almost not only sell the opportunity, sell the team, sell the family team, the business, the leadership to people, you can sell the whole concept of this funnel, because one of people's most biggest objections is, I just don't have enough time. Here's the thing, I've had the myth, and I actually heard Ray Higdon say this and he sorted me out. Just hearing him speak on webinars, people will say, I don't have the time. If I could be, you know, I've had this thing about, well, it's okay for you, Albie, and it's okay for Lawrence. You've got the freedom to have the full time to go ahead and do this. But if you're part-time, it's not an excuse. And the thing is that Ray Higdon says, and I just take this information in from these top earners, but the thing is, if you are not organised in part-time, full-time will be no good for you. In fact, you should learn the discipline while you're part-time and leverage your time and do the 20% of activities that are going to bring. And that means setting this funnel up. It means getting involved, diving in, making sure that you make every minute count, that you don't waste time senselessly clicking on Facebook stuff, just going through your emails. Do the things, the 20% that's going to get 80% of the results, and make it happen. And really, Greg, from what you've just said, that takes a lot of the excuses away. What's the most important thing? Getting people eyeballs on your presentation. This person's been sifted, sorted. You know, I'm speaking from passion, because the thing is, people who are part-time are time poor, but poor is not an excuse. You can work your way out of time poverty. And that's so exciting to hear, that you've taken away the 5 to 6. You know, you don't have the suspects, you've got a prospect, and not only a prospect, it's a hot prospect, someone who's ready to go, and someone who actually has your mindset as well as an interest in your business, and they've gone ahead and they've put the money out and they've qualified themselves in just the way that Igor says and the big hangout talks about. If you can't tell, I'm excited, and I just think this is fantastic.
Yeah, that's right, John. Excellent.
Albie?
Oh, sorry.
No, but you
sorry,
know,
mate. There was so many things running through my head while you were speaking. I've been in this industry for so long, and I'm just, it's like standing in front of a mirror when I'm listening to you, and I'm just thinking about all the challenges I went through. You know, I remember I used to have a poverty mentality, and I at some point realised that that was just a state of mind, and that I had to change. And you know, being the thing that I probably yearned for the most was time freedom. It wasn't even money freedom, but the money freedom gave me the time freedom. And yeah, you're so right. Everything is said. I hesitate to add to what you've already said, because there's just so much value in what you've just said, that I really don't want to add to it, because, you know, it's the journey that I've been through. And I know I've been working with you, John, for a few years. We've been friends for a few years, and you're my sponsor in this business. And, you know, I've really valued, you know, your expertise and, you know, your maturity in the area of all these things. So I'm listening to what you're saying and thinking that is the truth. That's the journey that everybody needs to go through. From a certain, you hear, like if you draw a line in the sand, that's where you are now. You draw a line in the sand over here to where you want to be. And then between that line and that line is the work that needs to be done. And 9 times out of 10, it's the work of the mind that needs to be done between those two lines. It's the mindset. It's about developing, as you would call it, an abundance mentality, not a welfare or a victim mentality.
Yep. You know, maybe I'll just throw in a few things that I did prepare for this. You know, when you talk about it, it doesn't matter sort of what guru or who you follow. The truth is the truth, and you're going to end up coming to it anyway. But one of the things I was listening to today, that Les Brown, and I've really come to appreciate this guy, he said that most people fail in life not because they aim too high and miss it, but most people fail in life because they aim too low and they hit it. And Albie, you know, I've listened to you talk about, well, you know, why do we hear these things for so long and it just doesn't sink in. You know, you ignored the advice of building a list for like 8 to 9 years, and maybe Lawrence 3 or 4.
No,
But you
thanks
know,
for reminding me.
no, but it's because I know that people are out there, and this thing, you know, I put together a dream book all around the Las Vegas event. You know, I've heard people for years talk about doing dream books and dream boards, but one thing that Mark Victor Hansen said is, with your conscious mind, what you do, well, first of all, he said the mind thinks in pictures and the brain inventories, right? So your mind, even if you're analytical, you're picturing analytical stuff, but you're picturing it in your mind. And he said you actually implode your vision into your subconscious mind, and it will outpicture your conscious mind. So, you know, there's days when you're having a crappy day or whatever, but if you go back and read the dream book, you know, I've heard about it for years, but it's so much power in doing that, and also having affirmations. Les Brown said that, and take comfort from this, Al, because I'm not digging that up to sort of tell you, I'm just really confessing where a lot of us are. He said for 14 years he didn't have self-belief. And he said our success is governed by the size of our dreams and our level of belief. And he said, he quoted Tom Cruise from the movie Magnolia, and it said that we might be through with our past, but our past is not through with us. So we actually have to tell ourselves a different story. And this thing about affirmations, you know, it's like, many times I've heard, you know, a lot of people will run out and it's like, well, I've got to go talk to my colleagues, I've got to talk to someone, I've got to think about it. A lot of people will go out and they'll talk to themselves, and they'll hear something, and their level of disbelief, all the self-limiting beliefs come by and talk themselves out of the opportunity. Their eyes are open for a moment, and it seems that life, just like the ocean, comes, washes back over, and that person gets caught up with life. But the thing is, if you've got self-limiting beliefs, let's talk about the law of association. You become as wealthy as the people that you associate with. So listen to mindset, associate with them. But hang on, if you're going to go back and talk yourself out of the business, why would you learn from somebody that's just as broke as you are? And you are just as broke as you are. So why are you listening to yourself? Stop listening to yourself. Give it up. There's a point in your life where you came to actually believe in those self-limiting beliefs. Out the door, sorry. Move on. No room at the inn anymore. You're out. You know, Les Brown actually said that you need to die to the person that you are so that you can give birth to the person that you need to become. He talked about it almost like the spiritual experience of being born again. You know, we have to let that person go and become who we deserve, that we know that we need to become.
So true. And I think just to sort of summarise what you've said is, you know, your income is always going to be directly proportionate to where your thinking's at, you know, to where your mindset is at. And to me, that's been a scary proposition up until, you know, the last couple of years. You know, I remember somebody sharing that with me, saying your income is exactly where your thinking's at. And to me, back then, that was a very sobering thought. I thought I was better than that. I thought I was a whole lot better than I actually was. And that was pride, I guess. That was conceit. It was a whole bunch of things. It was mindset, obviously. And I think, like, the more successful you become, or the more your mindset changes, you start to realise how little you actually know. So, you know, you and I shared this little adage the other day, John. You know, the point at which you think you arrive is the point you've departed.
Yep.
And I think somebody shared with me about, it must be 12 or 13 years ago. They said to me that, I'm just trying to think of the exact saying, and I've lost it in my head here. It just came down to, you know, your income is directly proportionate to where your thinking's at. And at that point, it was an absolute shock to me as to where I was at, and I didn't even know what it meant to change your thinking. So, you know, it took a whole lot of books, a whole lot of audios, and a whole lot of associating with the right people to get into that right mindset. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
For sure. And in a way, like you said, your own pride, you get in the way. You actually don't come in. You come in with all of your baggage from the past. And your past may or may not help you in this industry. But the thing is, and I've heard this said again and again, that, you know, in a way, when you succeed, you almost can't afford to be arrogant. Now, a lot of people get arrogant with success, but I've heard that billionaires have to be the most teachable people, and if you're not teachable, Ray Hegden said it this way, and this might agree with mesh in with what you're saying, that he said, and I covered this in the training last week, one of his biggest downfalls was not being teachable and thinking that you had what it took. And the thing is, he said, and there's a positive and negative way of doing this, you have to look at the results. So look at your results, and if your results aren't what you want, then maybe you just need to shut up and listen and become teachable. Now there's a positive, and so that's the positive way of looking at it. Look at your results. If I don't have the results I want, stop arguing with success, with what you and Lawrence talk about. You know, there's nothing new under the sun. Just listen, tap in to all the hangouts. And like you said, you know, I thought, well, I've listened to Napoleon Hill talk about on audio with W. Clement Stone, Think and Grow Rich. 5 years later, when I actually go ahead and grab the book, it's like, wow. And I actually heard Bob Proctor. He's like dog-eared his book and read it 100 times, Think and Grow Rich. He quoted Hubbard, and I heard him talking about it the other day. He said, every time you go ahead and read the book again, you're seeing it with a new set of eyes. You're a different person. You don't see something new that was in that book. You see something in yourself that you never saw before. So you're shining the light into more and more dark areas. It was all there last time you read it. But to read a book once and say, well, I don't need to read it again, that's almost like saying, well, I ate once. I don't need to do that again. You know, we literally cannot afford to get into our car and not listen to mindset. There's so much negative current. We actually have to tune out to tune in. And I just hear that, you know, I latched onto that thing the other day that you said, Albie, and it's like, bam, nugget. It's just, wow. You know, and whether you came up with it through your experience or whether you just drew that in from Zig Ziglar or whoever, it just does not matter. You know, it's something that you can do to build in and speak into, not speak to people, but speak into people's lives. Things that will inspire and spark, you know, learning, inspiration, transformation in their lives. So I really resonate with what you said.
Oh, thank you, you know. And it's the old thing, you know, you talked about sort of reading over the same material, coming back with different information. It's the old thing about, you know, when the student's ready, the teacher will come. You know, when you're ready to absorb that information. I think, and I honestly think that's the hardest point for most people to get to. It was the hardest point for me to get to, was a point where I actually realised that I needed to listen, and that I had two ears and one mouth, and I probably needed to use them in that proportion, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
and listen twice as much as I was speaking, and because I was great at giving other people information. I didn't have any success to speak of, but man, I gave them all the advice in the world, and most of the people I hung around were just like me, probably because they were listening to me. And it's when I started reading and really listening, like really open. I mean, they say your mind is like a parachute. You know, it's better used when it's open. You know, have an open mind.
And when it's stretched, it doesn't go back to the same dimensions, does it?
I learnt at some point. I don't believe it does. So I can't put my finger on the single moment that everything changed. It was an evolution. It was meeting people. It was associating with people. It was meeting guys like yourself. It's meeting guys like Greg. And Lawrence, obviously my business partner, had a massive impact on my life. Not only is he my business partner, he's probably one of my best friends, or he is one of my best friends, and he's a dear, dear friend. and because I've learned so much from him, he's also been very humble. He's learned a whole lot of things. We've shared a whole lot of things and put them to the washing machine and, come out with learning at the other end as well. So, it's, and I realise now where I'm at is I've got so much more to learn, which is why I'm listening to guys like yourself. I mean, Greg and Wendy came and spent a couple of days with me on our property here, and I learned a whole lot from them, from their experiences. And it's an ever learning, evolutionary process when it comes to this industry, and that's the bit I love about this industry, is that there's always something to look forward to. There's always something more to learn. There's always another person that you can learn from, and it doesn't matter where people are in their life, that you can pull out little nuggets. And I keep coming back to that. When the student's ready, the teacher will come, and you apply that to your life. I could spend an hour on this subject, but I won't, because this is your show, and I appreciate what you've brought to my life, and obviously I'm here in this business because of you and your persistence and where your thinking was at. So I guess I probably should say at this point, thank you so much for persisting with trying to get a message through to my head. It was a 12-month process, but you persisted, and you broke through my my barriers that I had. So I'm here because of you, John.
Well, thanks for saying that, Albie. But I can tell you that, even though I sponsored you, you really helped me when and I'm going to just throw this out there, because, when you are part-time, sometimes you can try to master too many things. And one thing that was really meaningful that you said is, I've been watching you, John, and this is going to apply to so many people with so many things, and I'm going to put it out there. Get out of the library and get into the workshop. That was a very meaningful, and I was sort of hearing that from other directions, and it's a matter of and I was making daily videos, so I've got that content that I can now share with the list, but bringing it all together, it's like building that list as well as relating to people. And I'll just say one little correction, Albie, the very fact that you're here, and I keep saying this every week, it's not my show, it's our show, because jointly we put this together. We actually create this content together, and it's this is something that you can share, Albie, that Greg can share, and anybody in the team. And even though I've got a weak side, it's one big family basically, and here I am talking to you guys. You're both on the strong side, but this is content that we can share wherever we are in the business, and it's content creation that we can then go ahead and help people. And you really only need, people get hung up on the how-to, but it's so much about the mindset, and really you only need a few little bits. Lawrence talks about focus, 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 follow one course until successful, which is what it stands for. But even with one strategy, say Facebook, just take one part of the Facebook strategy, get that plate spinning. People think that they've got to have all of the how-to information, but the people that are failing out there are failing because they are overwhelmed by the how-to. It's 95% mindset. You guys have this funnel, so people just need to get out and do that 5% how-to and get it out there. Like you said, Albie, you just get your link out everywhere, build the list. And I used to think of list building as this medium to long-term, and the connecting as the short-term bit. My advice is connect short-term, and also do this because you will get immediate term results in the list building, just like Andy has. You get immediate results as well as medium results, as well as the long-term assets. So you get it all when you do the list building and the relating to the list, as well as the active prospecting, the connecting, not wasting time on Facebook. But, there are people that just go down the street, and ABC means always be connecting. ABC means always be closing. Yeah.
Yep.
John,
I don't know what more to say. Yeah, great.
Yeah, John, I'd just like to just bring in about Andy. In the phone call that I took for him today, he would like to join us tonight, but I'm afraid he can't make it. But in the phone call where he was very excited about the fact that the new sales funnel had produced a hot prospect that was just like him, his exact words, he did mention to me that he was using affirmations for the first time in a long time.
Wow.
He had actually was looking at a Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. There's actually a movie or a series of videos about that, and he'd been looking at that, and he'd been getting back into his affirmations. Now, his background is in real estate some years ago, and apparently at the beginning of his real estate career, which he was very successful at, he did a lot of this work, this affirmations and the dream building that you've covered. And he said to me that as he went through, as the years went by, and as he got involved in work, etc., he sort of put that aside. It sort of dropped off, and he's only just recently picked it up again. And it was Wendy that actually sent him the Louise Hay a movie called You Can Heal Your Life. And that he actually said to me, "Yeah, I know all this stuff. I just need to be reminded of it because I haven't been using it over the last few years."
You know, that's amazing, because I've really, and I'm open with people on these calls. It's like, and I actually typed up and shared with people affirmations. I've got templates that I can share with you later, Albie, but I typed them up. This whole thing of you have to tell yourself a different story, and it's you actually, once you create them, you actually have to have the discipline. You need to put it on your daily action plan to actually do it, because it's easy to go and do it for a few days, but they are so powerful. And the common thing that you keep hearing, and I've been stubborn and heard about how good they are, you know, from Susan Sly to whoever talking about affirmations. You know, I heard about affirmations 20 years ago. A guy that said he would go for swimming, you know, when I really wasn't into business or mindset, but I was getting some investment advice. This guy said that he'd go into the pool at North Sydney near Luna Park at 6 a.m. in the morning, swimming, saying his affirmations. And I actually heard something else that it's extremely powerful. When you're talking, you sound different to when you're hearing yourself talk, you actually sound different to what you are hearing yourself on tape. And I grew up hating that sound of my own voice. And you think, I don't sound like that, but you actually do, because all you're hearing is the sound of your voice coming into your ear when you talk. When you talk, the more senses that you actually engage, and this sounds a bit ethereal, but it isn't. That's why writing goals down is so effective. When you talk, you are vibrating. I think it's like 2/3 of the vibration goes through your sinus cavities into the bone in the inner ear. So you're feeling the vibration and hearing, you know, all you've got to do is block your sinus cavities up and you sound different to yourself. You sound quote unquote nasal. So when you say these affirmations, you're actually hearing and feeling the vibration through your own skull and bone structure, and it's speaking it. I heard this might sound ethereal, but I heard Jeffrey Combs say this, that most people will talk into an existence and a reality that they're bringing about. And that sounds whoa, but man, you know, if people are Christian and religious, you know, we're made in God's image. And it might sound ethereal and it might sound unchristian when someone like Michael Beckworth says that we're creators, but hang on. God spoke and it happened. We're made in his image. We can talk, we can speak. And when we say it enough, we bring it about. We create a reality. We have to tell ourselves a different story. Shut up, John Pike. You know, actually, this is interesting. I heard Lawrence, and he had that deep and meaningful after he went to Las Vegas. I literally was listening to him talk in the car, and I stopped and I made a video, which I haven't published. He said that we're all hung up at one point. And I thought, well, hang on, I'm starting to say affirmations. I'm starting to make breakthroughs. But here's the thing about, you have to consciously keep yourself mentally broke and just bring yourself back down to earth. He said that no matter how far advanced you are, you're still hung up to some point. You've still got, you know, there's still, you know, why do the most the biggest trainers on earth spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on their own inner circle training to bring themselves to like a whole new level. Why does Anthony Robbins say that, you know, the reason you're plateauing is you've only got millionaire mentors and you need billionaire mentors? Learning success is a journey and it's never a destination. Back to you, Albie, when you said the point that you think you arrived is the point, you know, I forgot what it was, but the point that you've departed. So it's just so true. That's all I can say. But that's interesting, Greg, how you mentioned that about Andy. Affirmations are very powerful.
Yes, they are, John. Look, there's one other thing I'd like to bring up, because this is the first time that basically the three of us have been here, figuratively, in one spot. And I'd really like to thank you for your persistence with Albie, because you persisted for that. I think it was at least 12 months. You stayed with Albie. When Albie said no, he was busy doing other stuff. That's the way it went down, I believe.
Albie did a testimonial video, and it's interesting to hear from him more from his perspective. But here's the thing I want to say. It's persistence, but you don't get hung up. You always have to emotionally detach yourself from the outcome, because otherwise you'll transmit need to people. But Albie ended up being a long-term proposition that came through, and you know, he said, look, not now, you know, we've had some challenges with the team, and, you know, and the whole team's had its war wounds and it's grown, you know, but the core team went through battles together, and I was part of that battle along the way. You know, I was actually downline to Albie in other programs, and that's how I got to know Albie over time. But I want to say this, shoot for the stars, right? Or shoot at the moon, you might end up amongst the stars, and I have. But always have the mentality that your business never depends on one person. Albie came through, and that's great, but still my business doesn't depend on Albie. It's great that we connect and we create this content, and it's a real inspiration to be dealing with people that are downline to me, but that are really mentors regardless, that we all build off each other. But everybody has an out of balance position in their business. Tammy, who is just absolutely excellent and outstanding, has an unbalanced business, and that's the beauty of this. I'm sure if you speak to Albie, he's earning a lot of income, but there's always an imbalance there, so you're always working to build your business. So I've got this massive bank of points, but at the end of the day, they're points, and that's an earning bank of dollars. But I actually really mean this. The people and the friendships are worth so much more than silver and gold. And when you get onto these webinars, and when you get on Hangouts and you see stories of, you know, Gerald Allen Jr. coming out of a car, and how Lawrence was tough on you, Albie, as well, and it was tough love. He gave you a hand up. He said, I'll keep talking as long as you want to listen. You know, people have to qualify them for their time, but no one person makes or breaks your business. And I saw Todd Falcone say that. So he said, stop acting like it. So go. Ray Higdon says, you know, go for home runs, but don't hang your heart on it. Your business will never depend on one person coming in. I still have to work my rear end off and become the person I need to be, create these calls, you know, build your people so your people will build your business, because I've got a weak side of my business that I have to build. So even though an Albie and a Lawrence and a team like this may come along or may not come along in a lifetime, you know, it's better to create spill under than to rely and sit around trying to wait for spill over to happen in your business. I've got to build the other side of my business. So, and Ray Higdon said this, don't just go for home runs. Your business will be built, for sure, go for home runs, but don't just go for home runs. Your business will be built on base hits. It's not going to be built for a cricket lingo on sixes over the fence. It's going to be like single runs taken through the match will get you to the point of making a century. And I think that's advice, you know, it's the daily, you know, it's like Albie hasn't sat back and gone, oh, you know, no, there's the next level. There's more people's lives to inspire. The other funnel got the whole team to 20,000. I've heard Albie talk about, you know, we could very well get this to 100,000. And that persistence, you know, thanks for the thanks, guys, but at the end of the day, Albie made a decision. Lawrence made a decision. They took stock. And there was no guarantee that you were coming on board. You had something else that you were looking at with Lawrence. But the integrity of the Carrot Bars business was something that eventually caught your eye. So, you know, you're welcome. Thanks for the positive compliment. But at the end of the day, success is a decision away. And you made that decision, Albie.
Yeah, look, I have to actually thank both of you in this because of both of you, Wendy and I are here. Because John, you stayed with Albie, you'd built that relationship with him, and you'd stayed with him till basically you said he saw the light, as it were, you could say. And then of course Lawrence just jumped on board because Albie and Lawrence were just so close in their business matters. And then Rosemary, who's now living in France, she was a friend of ours, and she found Lawrence. She ended up in one of Lawrence's funnels and decided to join there. And of course, she shot us an email, and it was the right time for Wendy and I. And within probably, I think it must have been about a week after that, I shot an email off to Andy Hinks, who happened to be, even though he's now living in Darwin, he was living in Vietnam. And he tells the story about him being in his hospital bed and I plagued him. That's not quite the way it went down. but that's Andy. He embellishes things. So what I'm saying
giving you a bit of stick, mate.
Yeah, because of your persistence so long ago, it affected a lot of people all the way down, and I'm sure if Andy was on the line now, he would say a big thank you, John, and of course Albie and Lawrence and Rosemary and myself.
It's really humble. You don't realise what you're doing at the time and the effect that you have, and that there's a ripple effect.
It is. It definitely is a big ripple effect, and you don't. You just do the work, and you do the work, and you do the work, but you don't realise in the months and years ahead on what effect that you'll have on people and their families and their contacts, etc.
It's humbling to hear. So you're welcome, Greg, and I want to thank you. It's just the friendships that we're making, and who knows, this one person that Andy, we've got this family team culture, and it's growing all of us, and we've grown through a lot of war wounds. Albie knows all about those, but the thing is, how many more people are going to come along and sort themselves out now that we're sorting top prospects out? And this person that resonates, I believe in law of vibration, and it's just like a perfect match through law of attraction. You get what you attract at the end of the day. And actually, the law of attraction works when you create, you then attract. And so I've got this statement: you decide first, create second, and then attract third. And you have to be in the game and stay in the game. And it's a long-term game. And I would encourage everybody, just, I've got my vision book in front of me. How many lives that we're going to impact is totally unknown. You never know what your efforts are going to end up yielding. But print out this Las Vegas event. Who knows where you could end up in that? Don't talk yourself out of it. The level of success is going to be governed by the size of our dreams and our level of belief. Just don't give up. Just plow in, because we are changing lives, and people are going to need real money. But the thing is, we're making permanent changes in people's lives. It's not just helping people make money. I heard it said this way, that we're creating better lives. And friendship is just part of that gold that we pick up along this wonderful journey called success. It's never a destination. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. But boy, it's a nice iceberg. And just hearing people's lives being changed has a level of, it just increases belief. That's the whole thing about events, why they're powerful. It's success stories. But, Albie and Lawrence, when you guys actually create hangouts, they're like an event, because it should motivate you when you see, well, if they can do it, someone walks the stage, you should be rejoicing and saying, well, if they can do it, I can do it. Well, every time you do a hangout, you've got that same dynamic, an event that's showing a difference in a life that inspires people to stick with the technology. As Lawrence said, nothing's hard, it's just new.
Yeah, so true. Man, I've just learned 23 things from what you've just said. I mean, you were the perfect sponsor for me. So I really can't add a whole lot to that. You know, it's GIGO. You know, garbage in, garbage out. What you put in is what's going to come out. Good stuff in, good stuff out. And I've just taken some notes from some of the things you've been saying. And you know, yeah, there's a reason I am where I am, and there's a reason where you are. And you know, it was destiny that we connected, and certainly you were the right sponsor for me. And you know, there's a whole lot of lives that have been touched because of your decision to be persistent and very. I must say, over that 12 months that you know, I may have said to you in the beginning, it wasn't for me, but you know, I respected you enough, and you were obviously on a journey of personal growth that I respected you. So, you know, your results from your personal journey didn't bear fruit till maybe a year or two later, which is where we're now. But it's a great lesson for everybody that, you know, and I love this saying that you should believe in everyone but trust in no one. And that is, in this industry, like you've mentioned previously, is that don't put all your faith in one person. You should believe in everyone because everybody does have the potential. Only they can realise that potential. But don't try and hatch any one person. You know, always be on the journey of trying to help someone else, because if you put all your faith in one person, that means, you know, you're trying to hatch one egg. And I think of it as the mother hen mentality, where you know, you sit on the egg and you try and hatch it. And there's some people that even try and, you know, hatch twins.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, yeah, there's not a whole lot more than I can add to what you just said, John.
Mate, I think I've heard it this way. Those you think will, won't, and those you think won't, will, and it can surprise you. And I'm sure I was a dark horse because I was in Carrot Bar since 2011, and my sponsor sponsored me for free. And I actually was I was thinking about another networking company, and I thought, let me start building some contacts here, and I got sucked into joining for free, and bam, this happened, and it's blown a lot of people out of the water in terms of we have the largest and fastest growing team in the world. It's true. Jeffrey Combs talks about you kind of like, oh, this is my precious little pet and this person's going to be great. You set yourself up for disappointment I think what you have to do is emotionally disentangle yourself from the outcome. So you stay neutral to the outcome. And if something, let it be a blessing. I don't mean this in a negative way, but blessed are those who expect nothing, for they shall not be disappointed. In other words, don't set your heart on one person. Let the upside, be neutral, emotionally neutral, and if there's a downside, don't let it affect you. It's better to be overwhelmed by the upside than disappointed by the downside. And when you talk, I got blown away. Today's been, I've been wanting to finalize this funnel, right? And it's been out for 5 or 6 days. And it's like, bam, I've got this time set aside, but I've ended up, okay, I'm going to connect with some leaders. So I've had calls in. Today got totally blown away because there's some actual training that's right at the bottom of the list, and I mentioned it to Scott a long time ago, and a lot of people know it's that series in there. Not asking, it's given. What's the your wish is your command, right? I told you about that, Albie, and I don't know if it was because I did or whatever. It's ended up in the back office, and I told Scott about it a long time ago. It doesn't matter who did, but a lot of the people in the team are aware of this training, and I actually shared it with a personal development coach in Florida. And I just touched base with her. It was like, there's no program, active programs, just pure value. Here's some value, see what you reckon. Because without this, it'll give you a total different perspective about Think and Grow Rich. And I touched base with it. She's actually shared it with a friend who's listened to it 3 times. And it's got a lot of health stuff in there to how to deal with your mindset. This friend of hers, went to a doctor and got a clean bill of health on a low active thyroid gland. And this is just like putting it out there, and it's the ripple effect. and it comes back. It's like the law of compensation or paying it forward or whatever it is, and this is totally unanticipated consequence. And I spoke to somebody else today who recruited someone who's a big earner, who's recruited me into like a marketing funnel system, and I spoke to this person, and they're actually depressed at the moment, and they're listening to too many gurus, and they're just emotionally flat, and I'm sharing it with them. So what you do, you never know. You do it without expectation. I remember Ray and Fernie with No Excuses, and you guys will know about them through MLSP. Fernie Ceballos said years ago in betternetworker.com, and one of those What's Working Now articles, and it's always stuck with me, and it's so akin to the golden rule, it's not funny. Give without want, and you shall receive. It's pretty similar to the golden rule. Just give without want. You don't have this wantingness, just give it out there. I don't even think I've said it properly, but you know what I mean. It's Jim Rohn calls it enlightened, or even Mark Victor Hansen talks about being an enlightened millionaire, giving out. Or enlightened self-interest is what Jim Rohn said. You're creating value, you just share value. It doesn't take much to share value with your list. You don't actually, if someone's holding themselves back and saying, well, that's okay for Albie to say, but blah, 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 all you've got to do is watch a self-development video and go, hey guys, on Facebook, or hey, here's 3 points I learnt from this. How hard is that? You'll learn, other people will learn, and you just never know how you're going to influence another person's life tomorrow, the next day, next month, or next year. It's the golden rule, and it's universal. It's universal law. A law means something like the law of gravity that cannot be broken.
Mm.
It's fundamental truth that just cannot be argued with.
Absolutely. Look, there's just so many little gems in everything you've just said there, John. I've got to chime out here because I've got another call come at me, but I've literally, I have learnt a whole bunch of stuff while listening to you, and I thank you so much for being such an amazing sponsor, being so persistent with putting up with my attitudes over that 12 months to get me to a point where I joined up in a very incredible business that's going to change the lives of, well, already has changed the lives of thousands of people, and to be able to pass the baton on to guys like Greg, and Greg and Wendy have become personal friends of ours as well. We've just got such a beautiful team of like-minded people, and we want to make a difference. The difference we want to make is we want to get away from the hype and the BS of the rest of the online industry, and we want to make a difference, and we want to create friendships, and we want to create a team of like-minded people. We don't want to be conceited and proud, and we want to be on a level playing field with the rest of our guys, because really all we're doing is we're passing the baton of information on to someone else, and success breeds success, and that is our team mentality. So thank you, John, so much for number one, persisting with me, and putting up with my attitude for that period, but being humble enough to meet me at that point where I was ready to join, but also to share just what you've shared tonight, because there's just so many gems in there. I mean, if you just listen to this and paid heed to those gems and acted on them, you would become a better person because of that. So, and we're all on a journey of learning. And so thank you. Thank you, Greg, again, for your friendship, and Wendy. And, oops, sorry, that's my wife's phone going off there. We'll see you guys on the next webinar. What do you call this thing? Is it a Skype or a webinar?
Well, I call it it's just a Team Top Gold training call. So we just want to create the value that people can grab this and just share it and sell the team. And it's content that we've jointly, the very fact that you're here, you're welcome, Albie, but you might talk about attitude. I kind of had a bit of a joke when I dropped out before in terms of the audio. You guys said, I think John's got a mic problem, and I typed back tongue-in-cheek, I've got a John problem, but I'm working on that. So we're always working on ourselves, and that's the thing. And the more we can humble ourselves and become teachable, the more we're going to impact lives. So it's a privilege to be associated with you guys. I love everything that's happening. Thank you very much, both of you, for your time. Greg, for your anchoring this to record it every week. Let's wrap this up. I really don't think anything can be said, and I do appreciate, we've gone about an hour. Thanks very much for your time. Thanks for the learning. Thanks for everything that I'm learning on my journey from you guys as well. Great to be here, and we'll certainly look forward to catching people next week with our next team training next week. So thank you very much for your time, guys. Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Albie.
Yeah, thank you, John, and it's great to have you with us this time, Albie. It's been a real privilege.
A pleasure. Thank you, John, and thank you. Look, probably my parting thought, and this is, how I said before, I forgot what I was supposed to say. Probably one of the most sage pieces of advice that I've ever got from anyone was they said, to be successful, you need to be humble and hungry. You need to be humble enough to accept information. You need to be hungry enough to act on it. And, my mantra ever since I heard that, well, when I heard it, it was a bit of an awakening. It was like, that's what I haven't been till this day. I've been proud and unwilling to accept information. From that point on, I made a decision that, I needed to be humble and hungry. I needed to be humble enough to accept information, hungry enough to act on it, hungry enough to have the eye of the tiger. So, that was a great lesson for me. But if that's of some benefit to somebody hearing this, that's great. But that for me was a bit of a life-changing moment.
For sure. Excellent. Great way to end the call.
Okay, look,
thanks, John.
Much,
thanks,
Ollie.
Greg. And
okay, thanks, guys. Look forward to catching you sometime in the future. Thanks very much. And with that, we'll wrap the call up.
Okay, John, see you next week.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Catch you later.
Cheers.